Hello, welcome to another session of Understanding Human Anatomy. This session will begin a discussion of the interior of the pelvic cavity, and what I'm going to concentrate on are the muscles on the interior of the pelvic cavity. I want to start with two muscles that take origin inside the pelvic cavity and then pass out into the lower extremity to insert onto the femur. The first muscle I want to sketch in is Obturator Internus. Now, Obturator Internus takes origin from the pubic and ischium bones surrounding the obturator foramen, and also from the membrane that covers most of the obturator foramen. And this muscle passes out through the lesser sciatic foramen to insert onto the femur. And we'll color it in here. There we go. And then I'll draw it in on the other side, taking origin from around the obturator foramen and from the obturator membrane that covers most of the foramen. So there are the two obturator internus muscles. The next muscle I want to sketch in takes origin from the anterior surface of the sacrum. So we'll draw it in down here, and this is the piriformis muscle, and it passes out through the greater sciatic foramen. So we'll draw it in like so. And then color it in. It also inserts on the femur. And when we talk about the gluteal region, we'll talk more about the action of piriformis. I just want to draw it in here. Like so. And then we'll color it in as well. The next muscle I'm going to draw in is Iliacus. And Iliacus takes origin from the interior side of the iliac wing. And its fibers converge and exit the pelvic cavity by passing over the superior pubic ramus, and it goes down to insert onto the femur. Let me draw the iliacus in on the other side. Again, taking origin from the inside of the expanded iliac wing. and its fibers then passing over the superior pubic ramus to insert onto the femur. An iliacus is a flexor of the hip joint. A fourth muscle that follows this plan of originating inside the pelvic cavity, although this one actually originates from the bodies of all the lumbar vertebrae, and it passes down, and it will pass along the pelvic rim and then merge with iliacus like so. And this is the psoas major muscle. I'm just getting it colored in here. And when you get to the exterior of the pelvic cavity, the iliacus and psoas are referred to as iliopsoas because you cannot distinguish the muscle fibers from the two muscles. And psoas major is also a flexor of the femur. So I'm going to draw it in on the other side around like so, and then where it merges with iliacus. And we'll come back. And remember, psoas major is a round muscle in cross section. And let me fill in the psoas major muscle. And again, we have iliopsoas, where both iliacus and psoas major come together, and they do have a common insertion. Now, the floor of the pelvic cavity is covered by the pelvic diaphragm, and the pelvic diaphragm was discussed in a previous video on the perineum, and I'm not going to go through drawing in all the individual muscles of the pelvic diaphragm. The two muscles that make up the diaphragm are levator ani, and remember that levator ani is made up of several muscles, and it's also made up of coccygeus. And I'm just going to represent the pelvic diaphragm by coloring in all the open space in here blue. You see that we have two openings, one for the urethra and one for the anus, this being a male pelvis. Now that I've got the muscles sketched in, let me add some labels to this diagram. And we'll add first a label for Iliacus. And I'll put label in on the other side. We'll put a label in for the pelvic diaphragm. And remember, that is the combination of levator ani and coccygeus. Let me type a label for piriformis. And connect a line from the label to the muscle. I'll do the same on the other side. And we'll sketch in a line. We have Obturator Internus. And connect lines to both the obturator internus muscle, and then we have psoas major. Again, lines to each of the psoas major muscles, and then just to reinforce that psoas major and iliacus form iliopsoas. And there's the right iliopsoas and left iliopsoas muscles. And these are the muscles we find on the inside of the pelvis. Now, the pelvic diaphragm we've discussed previously, and it is the diaphragm sealing off the pelvic, the bottom of the pelvic cavity, or the bottom of the abdominal pelvic cavity. All of these muscles that we've talked about, obturator internus, piriformis, iliacus, and psoas major, notice that they are actually muscles of the lower extremity. They are all inserting on the femur. They pass out of the pelvis and insert onto the femur, where they will act on the femur and on the hip joint. So that will conclude this session of Understanding Human Anatomy. And in the next sessions, we'll discuss the viscera on the inside of the pelvic cavity. Thank you for your attention.